Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm really sorry about the glare on my glasses. I think I'm gonna have to close the blinds a little bit, but we'll lose the lighting. My lash extensions are so thin, so that's why I have my glasses on. Let me see if I can adjust it. Yeah, looks bad. So I'll try to close the blinds. Still pretty much a glare, but that's okay. If it sounds like I'm whispering, it's because I am. I'm not the only one home, so sorry about that. I'll try to adjust the volume as I edit. So this was not the best reading month for me. I attempted to read 5 books. I finished 3 and I did not finish 2. Realized that if I am struggling to get through a book, I will try to push through it, but it's kind of like to the detriment of my actual reading because I know I've mentioned before that I pretty much only read like a book at a time. So if I don't like it, then I'm not picking it up, I'm not finishing it, and yeah, so I'm just gonna go ahead and start. First book that I read or listened to on audiobook is The 5 Love Languages by Gary Chapman. My boyfriend and I listened to this as we drove to Florida. I gave it 4 stars. I think that it was really good. It kind of just goes into detail about the 5 love languages and the stories that kind of go with them as he's explaining them. I know a lot of people gave kind of some negative reviews. I think there was a story at the end that probably rubbed a lot of people the wrong way because it was a woman kind of explaining that she was in a toxic relationship and she didn't want to leave her husband, but she didn't want to stay, and the author was kind of pushing her to try, you know, either way was going to be painful, and I think that rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. You know, we took what we found was valuable. I thought it was pretty good, but I do think that if you have any kind of like knowledge or past knowledge of the 5 love languages, then I don't think this is necessary to read, but I thought it was pretty good. Next book that I DNF'd, which was a pain to DNF and so disappointing, was To Paradise by Hanya Yanagihara. I got probably about 60% of the way, maybe closer to 70. And this is a long book. It's about 800 pages or maybe a little bit less, and it's split up into 3 books, and each book is in a different kind of time setting, time place. I think that for me, I just felt like I never really fully meshed with the characters. I got through the first book, and then the second book has 2 parts, and I got to the probably middle of the second part of the second book, and I don't know, I kind of was just like, what's going on? Like, what are we talking about? It was kind of like not really plot driven, which I think is okay, but I think that for myself, I realized that I only kind of like books like that don't really have much of a driving plot. It doesn't need to be that long, and I don't think there needs to be as much detail. And that was something that I really liked about A Little Life, is that you know, there was no detail spared, but it was done in a way that I think was really important and kind of all came together at the end, and it was why the characters were so memorable for me. Memorable. And but this one, the first part of the book, I just kind of, it felt like kind of like, it sounds weird as it's reading, but it felt like storytelling. Like, it didn't feel like I was reading a book. It felt like somebody was telling me a story. Like, they weren't telling me all the parts, they were just telling me what was like the important parts, but it was not done in that way. It was done like all this extra stuff, but like nothing was important. It wasn't my favorite, and I had to DNF it, and it's such a pain. The next book that I read was Open Water by Caleb Azuma Nelson, and I gave that 5 stars. Actually took me a little bit of a long time to read that book. It's really short. I think it's only like 170 pages or something like that. I actually was not excited to read it, or I won't say I was not excited, but I didn't know what I was expecting, and I thought it was gonna be a romance. I think that there's something on the back that kind of talks about how it's like a love story, but it's so much more than that. It was really a heavy hitter for me. Yes, there is a love going on, but really it is about mental health and how we handle and deal with mental health, and without giving any spoilers away, kind of like how we can push people away from us because we are having a hard time and we're struggling, and maybe we cannot communicate that. We don't know how, but the person that, you know, loves us, they just see us, you know, objectively as who we are, and think we're good people. And I've been on both sides, you know, of that, where you push away, or you have a friend or a family member or someone really important to you, and you're like, but I see you, I see your greatness. And I thought it was so good. It was just so much more than what I was expecting. The next book that I read is Take a Hint, Danny Brown by Talia Hibbert. I gave it 4 stars, but I think I'm leaning closer to 4.5. I really liked that one. It was kind of in the same vein to me as Open Water, just strictly on the relationship aspect and the mental health aspect. This was about Danny and Zafia. She's a professor, a PhD student, and also working as a professor, and he works for security but was a former rugby player, and they both have their own kind of struggles with mental health, internal feelings. Zafia has anxiety, struggles with panic attacks, and Danny has kind of deeper rooted insecurities that she doesn't you know, allow herself to kind of see or understand. I think that, you know, she moves in life as a, you know, without kind of regarding that as a way to protect herself. And they were there for each other, and they came together, and I thought it was really good. I liked them a lot more than Get a Life, Chloe Brown. I did. I'm sorry. I thought this one was a lot better. I think that I related to it a lot more, just like from the academic standpoint. And I thought that these two in this book made more sense to me. So yeah, I gave that 4.5 stars. The last book that I DNF'd, which wasn't necessarily because I didn't like it, I just think that I was not in the place to kind of start reading it, was Box Hill by Adam Mars Jones. This follows a young man. I think that this is actually nonfiction, I think. But it is, you know, kind of written first person from the perspective of a young man in his first kind of dealings with being in a same-sex relationship with another man who's much older, that they meet, in the Box Hill Park area of London. I'm not familiar with that area, but from what I understand, it's like a really heavily wooded, like, national park kind of area. And I only got maybe like 30 pages into it. It was just like strictly about that. I mean, I'm sure that there would be more kind of unraveling, but yeah, that one I just wasn't like in the place to read it. I kind of felt like I was like digging through it. So I will probably pick that one up later at another point. So because I know that I kind of didn't have the best reading month, I did break my book buying ban, and I actually did buy a couple of books. But I will say that I haven't bought any books on Amazon, and I think that I'm proud of myself for that. All these books are from local booksellers, and the original book ban that I had was supposed to stretch and last all the way until April 16th. The last book that I had delivered to me on Amazon was February 16th. I'm surprised that it's gone by that fast, and you know, but I purchased books, but I just actually got these like last weekend, so I haven't bought any books since then. But I'm just gonna go through them really quickly just because I had nothing to read, so I thought that it would be, you know, fun to kind of introduce these books. I wanted to say that I have nothing against getting books from Amazon. I just know for me that I really am trying to kind of cut back on my consuming, because I think that it's so easy for me. Like, even with online shopping, to overdo it, because it's easy, you know, you're not physically walking around with stuff, you're not looking for it. And if you know, for me personally, what happens is that I'll be watching somebody's wrap up, or I'll be watching somebody's, you know, anticipated, you know, new releases, and they'll say the name of the book. I'll go on Amazon and heart it, add it to my cart, and then buy it. And because that happens, I have acquired a lot of books that really are not my true taste, or that I haven't got around to, and I really want to cut back on that. My big issue that I've been having for years is that it's not that I don't have anything to read, it's that I have too much to read. There's just so much to consume, and I would just so much more prefer going local, or going to the library. I have a really good library near me, and I don't want to ramble too much on, but you know, for me personally, if I'm going and I'm getting 4 or 5 books at a time, the odds of me reading them all right then are slim to none. So I would rather, you know, go into a store and get 2, and then I'm like, okay, well, those are the ones that I'm gonna read. But that's my spiel on that. The first book is a local bookstore that's actually really close to my house. I had no idea, a Black-owned bookstore, and I picked up Open Water by Caleb Azuma Nelson, and I read this version of it. Excellent. I would really recommend picking this up. The book that I have is Black Girls Must Die Exhausted, a novel by Jane Allen. I actually got this from Target. I was listening to the audiobook of this, and it was really interesting, but I just didn't like the way it was narrated. I don't know why. I don't know how old the woman who's writing this is, but I mean, she's writing it from the perspective, I think she actually said she was like in her late 20s, early 30s. The girl who's reading this audiobook sounds so young. I don't know, it didn't fit. So I wanted to pick it up at Target. I got it, so now I will make my way back to this at some point. But it is kind of, I'm pretty sure it's nonfiction. It is about Tabitha Walker, a Black woman with a plan to have it all. She's 33. She has an education, good job, down payment for a house, but she is, you know, kind of just talking about love, life, her experiences as a Black woman. The first couple of chapters were about nervousness and run-ins with the police, and I think this is, it's actually not nonfiction, but it reads as nonfiction. But I don't think I gave any spoilers away. That's literally in like chapter 1. So excited to read this. And I think that she has another book. Jane Allen also has another book that kind of goes along with the storyline. I don't know if it's about the same woman. So got this. The next book that I have is The Startup Wife by Tamima Anan. This is about a couple who they are working at a startup. Woman is like really good at her job, and she either meets a man or it's somebody that she's already dating, her husband, and they invent an app and it does really well, and they kind of like have to deal with the fame and how that like what happens to the relationship and how it grows. And I just thought it was really interesting, and that's why I like going into bookstores, because something like this, I don't know if I would have thought was interesting, but like the cover, and you know, you just pick up things that you maybe wouldn't have got otherwise. So pick this up. The next book that I have is Lori Moore, Self-Help. This is short stories about women helping themselves, and I saw this at Book People in Austin. That is like the big kind of local independent bookstore. It's also really expensive, so I don't go there that often, but the experience is excellent. And okay, but so I picked it up because I thought, oh, that's interesting. You know, it says self-help, but something about the cover is like ominous. You know, it's like the medicine cabinet, but it's actually kind of about from what I understand, it's like, what's the word I'm searching for? It's like when you're like actually trying to help yourself, like you're trying to survive, like the survival of women and how they're helping themselves. And I think the stories kind of span women that are experiencing mental health and trauma and difficult decisions and kind of how they are working through and reconciling that. And I just thought it was interesting, and it's really short, so that's what I got from Book People. I only got 2 books from there. Next book that I got is The School for Good Mothers by Jessamine Chan. Her name is like kind of similar to mine. My name is Jasmine, and it's spelled kind of similar, not really. I think that's how you pronounce her name. So this book, I'm sure you've seen it before. It is about a woman. I think it's a dystopian society, and she is punished for something that she did, some kind of like wrongdoing to her child, I'm not sure. And then from there, she is punished and has to go to school to learn how to be a good mother. And I've heard excellent reviews, but I've also heard some reviews that they didn't like it. They you know, felt like it was not believable, or you know, they felt like it was just dramatic. So some people don't like it, so I'm really excited to read it. The next book that I got that also seems to be kind of having a lot of mixed opinions is Vladimir by Julia May Jonas. And this is about a older woman. I think she's like 62, or maybe she's 50. I think her husband's 62. Somebody did kind of like a more in-depth review. They actually didn't like this, but I've heard like great things about it as well. But from what I understand is that she and her husband both work as professors at the same university, and they have an open marriage, although she doesn't really partake. She doesn't have any partners outside of her marriage, but her husband does, and that's just an arrangement that she had. But then she meets a younger professor who you know, she likes, and it goes from there. And a lot of people have good and bad things to say about it. I think it's pretty short, so I'm gonna maybe try and read this maybe this weekend. And yeah, I don't know, I saw this at Lark and Owl. That's a really nice independent bookstore in Georgetown, Texas, which is about 30 to 40 miles like truly north of Austin, like true Austin, but only about 20 miles north of where I am. And yeah, I couldn't believe I saw it in person, so I went ahead and picked it up. Next book that I have that I'm really excited about is Cheating Land: The Secret Confessions of Men Who Stray by Anonymous. Now y'all, I know people are like, girl, you shouldn't read stuff like that because, you know, you don't want to bring like a bad omen into my life, but I don't believe any of that. I think that relationships are really interesting to me. I was a psychology major in undergrad, and my favorite classes were relationships, whether that be platonic, familial, or romantic relationships and partnerships. And so this is just like my bread and butter, and I hope it's not like, I don't know, I kind of feel like it's like, I want to say I hope it's not like, oh, you know, I walked out on her because she began to change, or like something like that, where, you know, men drop the ball or whatever. But I'm like, but will it be like that? I don't know. So I picked this one up. Hopefully it doesn't piss me off, but I think that it will be kind of interesting. This book that I have is Bad Fat Black Girl by Cecily Bauer, I think. I can't tell if that's it. R and N, I think it's Bauer. I'm pretty sure this is nonfiction, and it is short stories about a young black woman growing up. I'm not sure where she's from. I've just heard excellent things about this, about some of the breakdown of kind of just experiences that are, I'm sure, universal for all women, but the experience as a black woman, specifically a black girl. And I think that she is, I'm not sure how old she is, so I don't know as far as like her childhood or when this would occur, but I know I'm 22, I'm almost 23, so, you know, my childhood ended, I don't know, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, I don't know, but, yes, and I just think that it's gonna be so good. So I heard it was really, really good. So yeah, that's all the books that I bought and all the books that I read this month, and I hope that I can have a better month in April of reading. And thank you so much for watching. Bye.